My dad said about the politics thing you said, and I thought it was kind of interesting. My dad is 74, and he said that they used to go out and meet couples and go and talk about politics and talk about whatever, and it was, you could be friends with anybody.
Yeah.
You could play golf with anybody. And he said, this was what he thought, and I don't know if it's true, but it was interesting, that when Reagan was running for president, there became like a religious movement, and I don't know history well enough to really know, where it became like you had to believe all the things of our party.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you had to be the other side.
Yeah.
So in his world anyway, it became this. That's where it started to divide. And
Yeah.
I actually would have thought it was far more recent.
I think it's the millennial generation that really started.
Well, they definitely. I mean, I started a bit about that where it was like Gen Xers thought, where I grew up, we thought we were the generation that there was no racism. Like where I grew up, I understand what the world's like.
We did too, yeah.
But we all liked each other. Like where I grew up, and and as adults, maybe that's not the case. But up through high school, you were friends with who you were friends with, and never teachers weren't meaner or nicer. I'm not saying everybody had a perfect experience, but we kind of thought we were like we love all the people, right? Like that was our. And then millennials are like, we love all the people and all the people, and then we were like, well, we like all the people, and they're like, no, there's more kinds of people, and we were like, and we're like, oh yeah, all right, and so they're like, you have to understand everybody's where everybody's coming from and agree with all of it, or you are a terrible person.
Well, I think some of that
And
is
sometimes
because
you don't
society
know.
is so easy too. Like,
Yeah.
we create problems.
Yeah.
And now, I'm from the South, so I did see racism.
Yeah.
But I wasn't racist, and I've always looked at all of us as the same. Like, all people are just people. We're all the same species. We're all the same things.
Yeah, I've seen people do bad things, and as an adult for sure. But like my social circle, I don't choose that. I don't know. That's not. I'm not gonna have that in my life. I don't need that. I don't think it's good. But it is weird to be angry at people that just don't know.
Yeah.
They've never met. Whatever. So the newer things, like people want they want the pronoun they want.
Right.
And some people have never met anybody that would ask for that.
Yeah.
So to them that is such a foreign concept. Whereas my kids went to college and you write your pronoun on your door so the dorm people know which pronoun you want to use, and that's like the norm. Like, and I was like, oh, that's funny, but they know you're, and I'm good, but I was like, but you're a girl, so they know you're a she, and she's like, no. And I was like, oh, okay. Like the world has changed so fast that if you aren't interacting with anybody, you wouldn't know, and you'd be like, well, that's silly. You have to write your pronoun down.
It is. I think it's silly, but I think it's because things are so good now. Well, they were.
Yeah, things were better.
But I mean, things weren't necessarily better because of the issue that this is a real issue. With the civil rights thing, that's a real issue.
Yeah.
And that's an issue of poverty. We shouldn't have poverty like that in this country.
Yeah, I think so. I know I sound northern, but I grew up a poor southern kid.
Yeah.
Right? And so it is the idea that there's a lot of poor southerners that came into money because they worked really hard.
Yeah.
White and black people, but white people.
Right.
And they worked really hard. And poor whites are ostracized by rich whites. That's a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
They don't want to talk to us. They don't like us.
Right, yeah.
We're gross, and they treat us like we're gross. And so that when they finally get past that barrier and they're mad, they're mad, and that creates a really hard thing to be like, there's a lot more barriers when you're not white.
Well, that's true, yeah.
And that's true.
Well, I think that's my problem is you see these neighborhoods that were created during the World Wars, and it was just cheap labor, so they brought black people into these neighborhoods and paid them very little to work in these factories. Then the factories moved after the wars, and they had these red lines where people couldn't leave those neighborhoods. They wouldn't sell real estate to black people back then outside of those neighborhoods. So there were no opportunities, and this was generations. So our society has created these communities, and we haven't done anything to improve those areas or reform those areas.
Well, there's a real lack of understanding that the issue was created by the institution of America.
Right.
Like as white people, we have a really hard time saying, oh, well, you were set up to be in this situation. You're the third generation that has lived in this situation. It's like we can't understand. I don't know why.
Well,
I
think it's because people are so apart from it. You know, you don't see that situation. I saw it some working in real estate and stuff like that, but and I've researched it. You know, I questioned it. Why are the prisons predominantly minorities?
Yeah.
You know, what's called, like, to me, when I see that, I know we're all the same thing. I know we're all the same species. We're all human beings. So why are these people, like this sect of people,
something very unfair
being more
is happening?
arrested? Yeah, like why is it that disproportionate? And then instead of saying, oh, well, they're just criminals, like, no, why are these people criminals?
Right.
What's causing them to be criminals? What's happening? Because they were all babies at one time. They were just like us. They were children. So what got fucked up in their life to make them choose that path? And that's when you go back and say, oh, well, you've got these big ghettos that are creating problems. They're just ruining people's lives in a cycle.
Yeah.
You know, and how do we stop this cycle? That you've got to figure out a way for society to come together and help these communities and stop that cycle. And we've rebuilt entire nations. Why are we not doing that?
Yeah, we love rebuilding other nations that we a lot of times blew up in the first place, but we do
right.
love doing that.
But we won't fix our own.
We love doing that.
It's crazy.
Like, let's go. I think because projects are exciting. Don't
like,
you love repainting a bathroom? You're like, look at my new bathroom.
But then they're like, we don't have any money. We don't have money to do it. And then there's this virus, and they say, well, let's just shut everything down. We'll just pay everybody.
You know what I found so interesting about the money thing that they gave? I didn't get anything, but they gave. So unemployment, they gave, I think it was, you got an extra $600 a month over what you would normally get.
A week.
I'm sorry.
An extra $300 a week.
Right.
Yeah.
And
$600 a week.
Oh, $600 a week over what you would have gotten. So some people are getting like $675 or something, right?
Yeah.
$7, whatever.
Yeah.
And what I find so hilarious is that the government's like, let's just make people okay for this time. Give them just like $600. That's so much more than so many people were making.
Oh, yeah.
That like the government was like, oh, we'll give you just enough to get by. You're giving me double what I was making. Like people now are like, a lot of people are like, oh my God, I can take care of myself. Like, and I was like, why don't you just make unemployment a regular money? Like we all have to make enough money that we can buy food and go to the doctor.
Well, it's going to have an interesting effect though, because as we started reopening,
they don't want to go back to work
and new markets.
Yeah.
Right, new markets that we didn't have existing because we kept, I can't say 100% staff, like 98% of every single person we had, we paid in full the whole time. So new markets where we were trying to get open that didn't get open yet or whatever, we're trying to staff them. And, we might have 50, 60 people, 100 people apply for a job. We had 3 people apply.
Yeah.
Right? They don't want to work. Matter of fact, they're coming in and they're trying to negotiate the pay rate, or they're asking us to pay them under the table because they don't want to lose their money because they're getting $600 a week from the federal government and they're getting $350, $400 a week from the state that they're in.
Yeah.
So they're making, $1,000 a week.
Yeah, North Carolina's not taking care of people nearly so good, but North Carolina's pretty poor.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of my concerns about the federal spending too is that I'm sure there's some crazy laws that got written into to the relief program.
So some of the relief money on the business end was interesting because if you don't understand it, you think you got a grant and it's a loan.
Yeah.
And it appears to be a grant until you don't spend it at the right time in the right way. Like it's a little complicated.
Yeah, they did drop it to 65% of it has to be spent on payroll, which is good.
Right.
Because
they gave my business $1,000. They closed me for 3 months.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to give $650 of it to an employee, so I only got $350 or whatever. And I'm grateful.
We'll talk
for the
after the show. I know a banker that might be able to help you out. So,
I'm just gonna. gamble the 30-50.
Yeah, I like
try
it.
to-
I like it. But the casinos are back open.
Casinos are open. I feel like that is the way.
Yeah, I think so. I think you should take the long money odds, 36, 37 to 1 and go at it,
But yeah, the original
Solve your
PPP
problems.
program was good, or EIDL was every business was guaranteed to get 10,000. They
Right.
quickly changed that.
Yeah.
They backtracked on that.
I mean, it's
then-
kind of funny because in a perfect world, everybody would have said, we would have been able to say, can you send me $978? That's what I need to get by for this amount of time.
Yeah.
Like if we were all,
Yeah.
and the government would have said, well, this lady she needs this. This people
That'd be impossible.
I
though.
know, because
Well,
we're all terrible.
There's
'cause-
so many people though.
yeah.
They announced the EIDL, I think was the very first one, right? The 10,000.
Yeah.
The next day, him and I talked. We actually recorded a podcast about this, maybe
Just about this, yeah.
2 or 3 days later. I knew then, and we're talking about basic math here, that the government only had
Yeah.
enough money to fund 1 out of 45 businesses.
Right, and they only funded Olive Garden.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, and Ruth's Chris.
Ruth's
so
Chris, yeah.
well, that's why that you saw this massive drop.
Yeah.
So they messed up. Like they did all this planning, and they didn't even do basic math and go, wait a second, if every business applies, we only have enough to give 1 out of 45.
I mean, I think they also, some of the loans were more trouble and more complicated
Oh,
than
yeah.
were. So people that have been running a successful business for a very long time, there's a lot of things, or a business, maybe not successful, but if you've been running a business for 30 years, some of the thing none of that stuff, you haven't interacted with some of the technology,
Yeah.
some of the concepts that they want you to, do you have this information? No, my money goes in a shoebox.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that
Yeah.
the advantages were not for the people that probably
Yeah.
needed the advantages. But
Yeah.
and bankers were picking and choosing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll tell you, and I obviously this is going to be controversial, but you've got so much money being pumped into individual citizens, and I would say the low end, we'll say poor and low end and middle class individuals. You get all this money being pumped into businesses. You got mortgages that are being deferred and there's forbearance, whatever word you want to use. You've got tenants that can't be evicted.
Yeah.
All this artificial stuff is going to keep everything afloat, and everybody's touting how
Yeah.
well we're doing.
Biden's going to have a tough time in November.
Bro.
Things are going to or January.
It's going down. 2021, a lot of the foreclosures are going to start because if you look at if it's written in the law, they can't. It's good no matter what. We're going to get through the end of this year or very close to the end of this year without a lot of problems because the money's just being pumped in.
Right. It's
and
fake
unless
money.
they add
Yeah.
something else, 2021 real estate market's got to crash because you're going to have bank-owned properties. There's foreclosures, evictions.
You guys want to buy my house right now?
Yeah.
I got to get out of this.
I'm telling you,
Well,
2021, 2022, it's got to.
Yeah, I mean, what
It's going to catch up to us.
all they had to do, there's just no there's no moms are running anything. Is probably really what it is because it's just some practical,
Yeah.
don't say you don't have to pay your mortgage. You have to pay some of it. If
Something.
everything was a percentage, okay, we got to cut everything back. Let's all cut. The country has to cut back. Not here's more money.
Yeah.
Imaginary money.
We own
Yeah,
some-
because we were already in debt, so
Right.
it's just more debt.
And if you're
So
poor and you work at McDonald's, you're still working and you're not getting any extra money.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you happen to be lucky enough to work somewhere that got closed, you're doing far better.
Well,
you know?
I'll give you an example, and people are not going to like this either, but we own apartment complexes and units and things, and I have other people that own big apartment complexes, and 81% of one apartment complex, they didn't pay
Yeah.
their rent. You know what was in the trash can, though? The trash cans were overflowing and packed with TV boxes.
Yeah, everybody was buying it. TVs were cheap.
And Best Buy across the nation, right? Because we were ordering TVs, not for individual, for a house, for our businesses.
You just got 30 TVs.
Yeah,
on the back.
right. But we were ordering TVs, and they were sold out across. Literally, they were out of TVs in the United States. But that's what was going. So people were getting their stimulus check and buying TVs and not paying the rent.
Yeah. I just think your bills, I just think all the bills should have been, I think the most fair thing was even if the government had paid everybody's mortgage, right?
Yeah.
Paid the big bill,
Or just knock it to the end.
or the rent. Yeah.
Extend it. Yeah, extend it
Yeah.
out. I think that would make the most sense because
That actually makes sense. But if you're
since
paying
no one
rent,
had a choice,
Right.
really now we should probably just say everyone should just put a mask on and keep going.
Yeah.
Well, I do agree.
But we
So-
didn't know that. It's impossible to have known that back then.
And I think if they had shut down for said 14 days, we're not even opening
Right.
McDonald's.
Oh, that would've worked, yeah.
14 or 21 days, and
Probably 21.
right, and then
Yeah.
nobody like police on the road don't go anywhere. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Emergencies only. And then after that, masks and 6 feet. I agree with you. And now the rules. I really like our governor. I think he's trying really super hard and he's smart and all those things. But the rules are really weird.
It's gotten political though.
So yeah,
That's the
and
problem.
he's they let breweries open and not bars. That's the same business.
Yeah, it
y'all.
doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
And then
Well, they let restaurants and not gyms too. I mean,
right and.
And gyms are much cleaner than restaurants. I just want to point that out. I think.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't. It's so
most
funny.
most gyms.
Don't you feel gross? Like people are eating in restaurant. Have you guys eaten in a restaurant yet?
I haven't.
Have you?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you would. No, just because I feel like you're like I'm fine.
Oh no, I'm definitely.
I'm like
My life hasn't changed.
it's too
And-
gross
yeah.
to me. I'm like I just see little COVID things floating around.
I don't. After
Yeah.
the data I've read, I'm not too worried about getting it personally. I'm just worried about giving it to an older
Yeah.
person.
You know the
Yeah.
average death
That's my
rate
concern.
is 81 or 82. That is that's longer than the
Yeah.
average life expectancy rate. So it's killing people that have already outlived their life expectancy. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be
It's
insensitive.
not an ideal way to die. I think.
No, I agree. I get
But
it.
Oh, yeah.
It's killing people that are older
Or
and people
have-
that are fat
Well,
or
so-
high
So you're
high
susceptible
risk.
to it,
I'm
actually.
susceptible, right?
Yeah.
But
And-
there are some like new. So because there's 2 strains now or whatever, there are like 30 to 40-year-old men that work out all the time that are just having heart attacks.
Yeah, but if you look at the statistics,
Y'all
though,
weren't
they're
having heart
a
attacks
tiny
before.
percentage though.
Yeah.
It's also so if you get if you can pull up the actual COVID data, like from New York, and New York's the best.
Yeah, Steve does all that stuff at work, so
And
like
you-
I
you
hear
can-
about it all the time.
You can pull up the statistics, and it'll show you like what percentage of people had different types of underlying
Yeah.
like health,
Yeah, so-
health problems.
and a lot of
it's-
times you don't know when you have a heart thing.
So the
Yeah.
actual death rate is, I think, less than 1% across the board.
I don't want it. I don't want to
Yeah.
die from it.
Oh, I don't
want
want
to
it
give it to
either, yeah.
anybody. I
But
don't want to touch
I feel like it's
nothing.
like smallpox. I feel like
Now, if it was smallpox, would be fucked.
I feel like. I mean, what do you?
That's
or
coming
we'd
back
all-
in.
or,
Thanks
chicken,
to
chicken pox.
Jenny
Chicken pox.
McCarthy, we're all going to get
Oh,
smallpox.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So chicken pox.
Anti-vaxxers, yeah.
Chicken pox, right?
Chicken
And that the
pox
one-
can kill you too, man.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. If you wait till
Yeah.
you're older,
So you know what's funny?
right?
I
Well,
didn't-
even as a
You
kid.
need to get people as kids exposed to it.
yeah, or you get
Well,
the shots.
There's a vaccine now for it.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
a vaccine for chicken pox.
I remember when I was
3.
younger, like, hey, somebody had chicken pox. My mom took me to their house.
Yeah, kids did die from it.
Kids
then.
died from it, though, yeah.
It's just that it was less kids died.
Very
I mean,
few.
you're right. It's more adult.
Yeah.
But kids did die from chickenpox. I remember at my age, they like everybody got together and tried to get chickenpox, and
Yep.
that was like
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
But I've had shingles as an adult,
I have too.
and that feels like you're dying.
Well, I caught mine really early,
I did too, but
and it never spread.
I have a giant scar from it.
Really?
Yeah, I'll show you guys later. But it was weird because I went to lunch with my friend, and I was like, the skin on my back hurts, and she's like, "What? Weird." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't feel bad. Like it feels like I took a cheese grater." And she's like, you have shingles?" And I was like, "Nah, there's nothing there." And at the end of lunch, I went and looked in the mirror, and there was like spots.
Oh.
And then I went to the doctor, and they said I didn't have shingles. And I was like, "Dude, this hurts." And they're like, "We're going to give you the whatever the medicine is that they give you," which, by the way, I guess is the same thing they give you for herpes. So when I went to the pharmacist,
Yeah.
whatever it's called, they were like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, "Stop shouting that." I was like, "I don't have, it's shingles. I have shingles, everybody. It's just shingles."
That's funny.
Yeah. But that was really painful. It was a couple weeks of like, your skin is raw, but
Yeah.
it itches, but it
Yeah.
hurts.
I got lucky because I was in New York with my wife, and I guess we just woke up, and I was like, "Hey, babe, there's something on my back,"
Oh.
and it was like these 2 bumps. And,
Oh, you got really lucky.
And I was like, what are those? And she's like, "Oh, they're like blisters or something." I was like, "That's weird." And so I went to the first care at Times Square. And I was like, "I'm gonna be here all day. I'll be here
Yeah.
tomorrow." There was nobody there. I was like, "This is impossible.
That's crazy.
Is this a movie? Is this real? Am
You
I
got
awake?"
really lucky.
Yeah, and she looked at it immediately. She's like, "Yeah, you've got shingles. I'll give you a prescription." And then
Yeah, if you catch it really early,
yeah, and I've never
that
had any
medicine
trouble.
works instantly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So it was good. I got really lucky. Yeah,
Yeah, but it's terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, I know people have had it, and they said it was brutal.
Yeah. And they don't give you good drugs for anything anymore. It's everybody.
Yeah, so unfortunately, we missed the vaccine.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, we missed the vaccine. And now I guess they're giving a vaccine for pneumonia. My 20-year-old went to the doctor today and they're like, "Do you want the pneumonia vaccine?" And she's like, "I got to ask my mom before you give me shots."
I like it.
Let me find out what about. And I'm like, "I got to research that. Don't just be taking some shot they
There's a
popped on."
pneumonia vaccine?
Yeah, so you want the shot before you're 65 because after 65, if you get pneumonia, a lot of times you die.
It kills you.
So somehow this vaccine helps you in your old age.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Look into that.
But I don't know about it. I literally found out about it
research it,
today,
yeah.
and luckily she didn't just get it without me knowing what it was.
Yeah.